Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got an Apex Legends character guide for you on the Bamboozler himself, Mirage. Mirage is my second favorite legend right after Pathfinder, and he's my second most played, so I do have a lot of fun with this character and have a lot of advice to offer you. I also think he just has the downright best voice lines in the game. He's really the only legend that I would consider actually spending some of my currency to get voice lines for. However, I do have to admit, as fun as Mirage can be, he's kind of a one-trick pony. He's got one ability that's good, two that are lackluster, and all three of his abilities do not help the team at all. He's a very selfish solo player. Almost all the other legends in the game offer some sort of team utility or something that you can combo with another legend, but Mirage really only helps himself, and that kind of fits his egotistical story, so to speak, which is why I think they built the story around the character. And by the way, if you're watching this video in the first couple hours after it releases, I'm streaming live right now on Mixer from CWL Fort Worth, meeting fans. I'm going to be playing Blackout, not Apex, I know, but having fun. You can click the first link in the description, come check it out. And now let's talk about Mirage's passive. The passive is kind of like an automatic version of the ultimate, but a lot weaker and ultimately a lot less useful. When you get downed, Mirage will automatically deploy a hologram just in front of where you were downed. He does kind of like a goofy death animation, like a comically bad Shakespearean dying thing. And while that's going on, you become invisible for 5 seconds. The invisibility cloak, it does not last very long. A lot of players seem to think it's indefinite and you're always invisible. Nope, it's 5 seconds. So you only have a limited amount of time to reposition. In my opinion, this is the worst passive in the game and overall isn't very useful. It's really only helpful after you've already lost a fight and been downed. Every now and then it does buy you some time and stop you from getting perma-killed. Every now and then you can kind of sneak away in a hectic firefight and people won't chase you down and you can get an easier res. But a lot of smart people aren't fooled by this. You're probably just going to get perma-killed anyway. However, I do have some small tips when using it. When you're Mirage and you get downed, you get to crawling immediately. Don't stay anywhere near that body. And no matter what happens, unless, well, of course, unless they're shooting you, don't put up your shield. Your down shield will give you away because it glows and it's bright. It could be bright white, bright purple, bright blue, but it'll give you away 100%. Don't do that. Just keep the shield down until you know somebody's going to shoot you. And if you do this, sometimes you can reposition quicker and get an easier res, but overall it's not a very useful ability. What is an extremely useful ability is his quick ability, and that's what we're going to spend the most time on today. It's called Psych Out, but most people will say hologram or bamboozle, and this is Mirage's #1 bread and butter ability. This is the best and truly only reason to play Mirage, and you need to get good with this ability or go play some other legend. We'll be talking about this a lot today in 3 different sections. One is the basic stats and info on how it works. Number 2 is an application of that, some tips and advice. And then finally, some advanced tips about the Mirage because the Bamboozle or hologram, because it can do some interesting things. So for basic information, Mirage, when he uses his quick ability, deploys a hologram running in the direction that he's looking at that moment. The hologram has a cooldown of 15 seconds and it will stay on the map for 15 seconds. So as soon as one disappears, another one's available, and it's pretty much always available. I do know some players that spam this all the time trying to bait enemies out. I like to try to keep mine for clutch moments, but if you want to spam it, it's actually okay to do that. The hologram itself is very simple. It'll look exactly like you, just like your skin and whatever you're wearing, and it's going to kind of jog forward and not shoot, but it'll stop when it hits a solid object. It won't go around hardly any objects unless they're just like pitifully tiny. If an enemy gets bamboozled and shoots your hologram, the hologram will break and disappear. However, you get a HUD indicator of where they were shot from, so you will have a really good idea of where the enemies are. This can be used to gather information and for misdirection. The illusion is overall pretty simple, and it doesn't fool a lot of smarter players, though it gets me. I guess I'm saying I'm not a smarter player, but I'm kind of a jumpy, twitchy guy. I shoot at anything that moves, and there are a lot of good players that play that way as well, so a lot of people will shoot the holograms. The best application of this is to use it to confuse your enemies when pushing them or when running away. I like to do it to push them from cover. Basically what you want to do is always send out your decoy first and then go the opposite direction. If you're behind a box, throw your decoy left, wait a half second, and then go right. If you want to go the other way, do just the opposite. And the way this works is that the enemy will always see your decoy first. They will almost certainly shoot it waste their time, think about reloading, you'll know where they're at, and it gives you a little heads up on your push, which is very, very nice. Don't let anybody see you deploy your decoy, because then, well, they know it's fake. They know it's a hologram. They're not going to get bamboozled. They're not going to shoot at it. They're just going to ignore it and keep hunting for you, knowing that you don't have any abilities, which is quite bad. You can use this ability to throw a hologram down in front of you when you're looting boxes or supply drop, and to keep it from running, you can just look straight down at the ground when you get there and throw, and it's not really going to go anywhere. And the way this works is you can make it look like there's more people looting boxes than there are, and it's kind of like if you run up on an enemy team and you see 3 of them looting boxes and you take a shot at one, you have a 1 in 3 chance that you could hit the hologram and it could save your life or give you some extra information. Same kind of thing with supply drops. Not the most practical, but it'll help you every now and then. One thing that is surprisingly useful is that the decoy itself will block 1 to 2 bullets. So this can help in ultra critical close quarters combat trades where it just comes down to the wire. I still think that it blocks so little damage that it's probably better to just use as a decoy even in close quarters combat, but I have seen people trade shotgun rounds and block them and little SMGs and stuff, but it's super close. I wouldn't bet the bank on that. The best way to think about the effectiveness of blocking bullets with the decoy is to imagine the decoy as anti-vaccine science. Once that science is held up to peer review, and in this case our peers are bullets, it hits the science and all of the logic evaporates immediately, and you can see the ugly truth behind it, which I guess is a Mirage hiding in a corner, healing himself of measles. The basic idea behind this whole ability is just to confuse your enemy, waste their time, force a position reveal, or reposition yourself when you're in trouble. There are some more advanced tactics you should know. If you crouch, the decoy itself will crouch. This allows you to get it in tight spaces to make it go under some ledges and stuff, and it generally makes it look more realistic because most people just see the dumb running decoys. You can do the crouching decoys. If you walk, it will walk. If you sprint, it will sprint. It'll more or less mirror whatever you're doing when you deploy it, so you can use this to make it look more real or more confusing given the situation. You can also deploy a decoy while flying off a balloon, and I think this is super useful, and it'll just fly in whatever direction you're pointing at. So if you're up on a balloon and you're flying somewhere and you know somebody's on your tail, you can throw your decoy one way or the other and force them to take a 50-50 gamble onto which one to follow, because your decoy looks exactly like you in the air. It's probably best in the air, to be perfectly honest. If you want to take in human psychology or player psychology and meta, the vast majority of people, myself included, often just throw the decoy left and we go right. Human beings have a big bias toward right. So if you want to be a little bit opposite, you can throw the decoy right and go left. That'll happen sometimes. And the final tip that I would give with this one, and this one happens very infrequently, you can sometimes use the decoy to spook enemies and force them to stop a res because they think you're pushing, or stop healing, or react oddly, and just kind of force them to do something strange that they wouldn't normally do by throwing the decoy straight at them. So that's his bread and butter ability. We talked about that a lot. Let's talk about the ultimate now. Mirage's ultimate is called Vanishing Act. It's one of the weaker ultimates in Apex Legends. I don't think it's very strong or useful in a lot of situations. It is on a short cooldown though at 150 seconds, so it's up pretty often, and quite simply it deploys a whole ring of decoys around you while you go invisible and are able to reposition for a few seconds. Unfortunately, these decoys aren't as convincing as your basic ones. You can't make them do anything. They just kind of stand there. They don't run, they don't react, and you're always going to be in the dead center of them, so that anybody who's played this game very long is just going to start looking for the kind of sort of invisible guy running around. It takes a little bit to deploy, so you can't pop it instantly. There's a wind up, and you can't shoot while you're deploying it, so that's bad. And you cannot shoot while you're invisible. And this is my #1 issue with it, and where I really struggle, is that I want to deploy it, and I'll sneak up on somebody real quick, and I have to wait to shoot, and I have to wait, and I have to wait, and I have to wait for it to push to finally finish. So take your time, sometimes push a little slower, and don't get too close, or they might hear you or see you. Obviously, it's good to escape with if you can actually pop it while they're shooting at you. And I think the invisibility is more useful than the decoys at this point. However, there is one neat thing you can do with the decoys. I don't have an example of it because I don't think it's very practical. If you deploy this ability from an elevated position, your holograms will actually sprint indefinitely and just run in all directions like they used to in Titanfall 2. And by an elevated position, I mean you need to be standing on a rock, a cliff edge, a barrel, a house, something kind of like that. And it's pretty much programmed, or if the dummies run and then fall, they'll run indefinitely. However, you can't do it mid-air. You can't just jump and drop them mid-air. For whatever reason, if they deploy while you're in the air, it doesn't work. But if they deploy when you're on the ground, preferably a short little rock or like a hill or something, and they fall, then they'll run everywhere. However, I don't think that this is a good idea. It seems like it'd be a good idea to have more effective decoys, right? Because it's way more confusing, but it's kind of hard to do this mid-combat because you have to either position yourself poorly on an exposed rock or ledge, or in a way that's kind of hard to get off of. And in the entire time filming this video, I really could not find a good opportunity to use it. In a normal gunfight, it's just very, very impractical, but it is something to keep in mind if you want to do. At the end of the day, Mirage is a very fun legend to play that offers a lot to a solo player. He doesn't offer hardly anything to your team, but he is very good mid-combat because you can confuse and annoy enemies much, much more than Wraith or Pathfinder. However, if you want somebody useful for your team, if you don't want to have a really like sweaty solo guy going for kills on his own, probably don't play Mirage. And his only good ability is just the Bamboozle. The passive is probably the worst in the game. The ultimate is bottom tier, but that Bamboozle is amazing. If you like confusing people, go with him. And my general advice on who should play Mirage is people that are clever, inventive, trolly, people that think that they're smarter than other players. If you are a bright guy, you can get a lot of utility off tricking people less bright than yourself. Guys, that is all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful, and if you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.